The great hall of hollow spire hold flickered with torchlight that barely chased the cold from the stones. Thaleia stood alone at the center, fingers knotted in her skirts, the weight of every watching eye pressing on her like iron. On the dais above, her father lounged like a man who believed the world should kneel for him. Lord Varric, Duke of Hollow Spire, lifted a goblet lazily and said, as if discussing the weather, "Tomorrow at dawn, Thaleia will be taken north and delivered to Nightspire Citadel. The Alpha Vampire King asked for tribute. I have chosen her." A hush swept the table. Her half-sisters stared down at their plates, not daring to smile in relief, though the corners of their eyes betrayed it. Thaleia kept her chin high even as her stomach nodded. "My lord," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her ribs, "the treaty mentions trade, grain, iron, not daughters." Lord Varric slammed his goblet against the arm of his chair, wine splattering like spilled blood. "The Alpha wants a living pledge. A girl from my line. I will not waste a beauty on a monster in the mountains when I can sell them here. You," his gaze skimmed her like she was nothing worth naming, "are a burden I can finally make useful." The words landed like stones in her chest, familiar and sharp. Her sisters, slim and polished, pretended not to hear. "You would offer me like livestock?" Thaleia asked quietly. "You will go," Varric snapped. "And you will be silent about it." The torches guttered, as if reacting to her rising anger. No one else noticed. Thaleia swallowed the burn in her throat. She would not cry here, not for him. "Am I to bring anything?" she asked. "One trunk," he said. "Nothing of value. Nothing of mine." The guards moved in immediately. Thaleia lifted her chin and allowed them to escort her out of the hall without a backward glance. In her chamber, she packed quickly, thick wool dresses, her warmest cloak, sturdy boots. Hidden beneath them, wrapped carefully in plain linens, she tucked 3 books, her true inheritance, and her journal. The only place her voice had ever been safe. As moonlight crept over Hollow Spire, Thaleia stood at her window and whispered to the mountains, "If I must be sent away, let it be the last time he decides my life." And for you listening, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, and comment where you're watching from. It helps this tale reach even farther. Dawn arrived under a sky streaked with iron-gray clouds. A wagon waited in the courtyard, plain, unadorned, meant for hauling crates, not daughters. Lord Varric did not appear to say goodbye. The guards tossed her trunk into the back and gestured sharply. Thaleia climbed in without accepting their hands. The gates of Hollow Spire hold groaned open, swallowing her last glimpse of home. The journey north took 3 bitter days. Villages thinned. Forests closed in. Snow crept steadily over the ground, whispering promises of deeper cold ahead. The guards spoke little. When they did, it was about spirits that lived in the ravines, or the wolves that followed travelers at a distance. By the 3rd day, the wagon wheels crunched on pure frost. When the fortress finally appeared, Thaleia forgot how to breathe. Nightspire Citadel rose from the mountains as though the earth itself had grown fangs. Towers carved of black stone spiraled upward, veined with silver light like frozen lightning. Blue-white flames burned in tall sconces, reflecting off the snow in eerie glimmers. The guards halted far from the gate. "This is as close as we go," their captain said, refusing to look at the fortress. "You walk the rest." He dropped her trunk onto the snow and turned the horses sharply. Within seconds, the wagon retreated down the twisting path, leaving only the echo of wheels behind. Thaleia stood alone. Cold wind pressed against her coat. The giant obsidian gates opened with a whisper, as if responding to her presence. Her boots crunched on untouched snow as she stepped inside. The courtyard beyond was silent, no chains, no cages. Only frost-covered stone, drifting snowflakes, and a sense of something ancient watching. Then a voice, deep, rich, and impossible to ignore, rolled across the courtyard. "Thaleia of Hollow Spire," it said. "You are not what your father promised me." She turned. And Kaelith, the Alpha Vampire King, stepped into view. Tall, broad-shouldered. His coat black as midnight, trimmed with faint silver runes. His hair, pale as moonlight, fell loosely around a face that seemed carved from sharp intention. But his eyes, garnet orange with a blue frost ring. Eyes that saw everything. Thalia's breath hitched. "My father promised me like an object," she said. "He does that." Kaelith circled her, slow, assessing, not mocking, not cruel. "He wrote that you were stubborn," he murmured. "Too clever. Too loud. Too large. Too inconvenient. A beat. He left out that you are brave." Heat touched her cheeks despite the cold. "Bravery," she said, "is sometimes just what's left when you've lost everything else." Kaelith stopped in front of her, expression unreadable. "Come," he said. "This place will not devour you. Not unless you ask it to." And he led her into Night's Pyre. No change in events, names updated, writing polished for flow. Thalia followed Kaelith through hallways carved directly into the mountain, black stone polished smooth, lit by cold blue flames that cast no smoke. Strange tapestries depicted constellations she did not recognize. She heard whispers of voices behind doors, some human, some not entirely. At last, they reached a chamber with a tall wooden door. It swung open before Kaelith touched it. Inside, warmth. A fire crackled in the hearth. A copper bath steamed gently. A massive bed draped in deep indigo velvet stood beside tall windows overlooking a sheer drop into clouds. A woman stepped forward. Tall, slender, with violet eyes and silver-threaded braids. "I am Thaleia," she said. "A day-born, half-human, half-vampire. I'll tend to your needs, Lady Thalia." Kaelith inclined his head. "You will rest, eat, and breathe. Tomorrow, we will discuss why your father truly sent you here." He turned to leave, paused at the doorway, and added quietly, "Hollow Spire lost more than it understands." Then he vanished into the shadows. Thalia exhaled shakily. And for the first time in years, someone had called her more. Events stayed the same, names updated consistently. The next morning, Thalia awoke to sunlight fractured through crystal windows. Thaleia arrived with warm bread, melting butter, honey-glazed roots, and a cup of fragrant tea. "You slept well?" Thaleia asked. "I slept," Thalia said. "Which is more than I've done in Hollow Spire for years." Thaleia smiled, faint but genuine. "The Citadel does that. It quiets what hurts." Later, Kaelith summoned her to the library, a cavernous room with shelves spiraling 2 floors high, lined with books older than Hollow Spire itself. Sunlight pooled across ancient tomes. "You read?" Kaelith observed. "Yes," Thalia replied. "Books were the only place I ever fit." Kaelith's expression softened. "Then this room may become your kingdom." And so, day by day, they talked, cautiously at first, then more boldly. About the world, about the treaty, about the strange warmth Thalia felt when angry, and about the flicker in the torches the night she was taken. Little by little, Kaelith did not just see her. He listened. And that, more than anything, made the storm inside her stir. The bath that evening felt like sinking into another world. Steam curled around Thalia's cheeks, softening every tight muscle she had carried from Hollow Spire. In Night's Spire, no one banged on her chamber door telling her she was taking too long, wasting water, wasting space. Here, the silence felt respectful. When she stepped out, a deep forest green gown waited by the fire, its cut simple yet undeniably beautiful. Thaleia had chosen it, and chosen wisely. The fabric hugged Thalia's figure without trying to hide it. It felt like wearing truth instead of apology. "You look like someone who breathes now," Thaleia said gently while braiding Thalia's hair. "Not many do in these halls. Even fewer did in Hollow Spire." Thalia swallowed. "I think I'm still learning how." A soft knock interrupted them. Thaleia opened the door and bowed her head immediately. Kaelith stood there, tall, calm, unreadable, though the faint ember ring in his eyes pulsed just a little brighter when he saw Thaleia. "I did not mean to intrude," he said, though the doorway was already molding around his presence like it had been waiting for him. "I came to ask if you would join me. I have something to show you." Thaleia's heart tripped in her chest. "Of course." Soraya stepped aside, smiling silently as Thaleia followed Kaelith out into the dim corridor. She didn't know if the warmth in her cheeks came from the fire, or from the way Kaelith's gaze had lingered on her gown. He led her through the winding paths of Night's Pyre, past open balconies where blue torches flickered like trapped stars, past echoing walkways carved with symbols too old to read. They descended a narrow set of stairs until the stone floor opened into a circular chamber. The mirror hall. "Stand here," Kaelith instructed softly. Tall, thin mirrors ringed the room, each reflecting not the torchlight, but something deeper. A faint shimmer circled the chamber, as if magic itself held its breath. Kaelith stepped behind her, his voice quiet but steady. "There is power in you, Thaleia. Not vampire, not human, older. It listens to emotion. It responds to your will. But you must learn to guide it before it answers you in ways you cannot control." Thaleia stared at her reflection. Her own eyes looked different here, sharper, more focused, almost luminous. "I don't know how," she whispered. "That is why I am teaching you," Kaelith replied. He held up a small candle. "Light it." "There's no fire," she said. "You do not need fire." She inhaled, let her thoughts stretch, reaching for the strange hum inside her. Heat stirred faintly behind her ribs, not burning, but awakening. Her hands tingled. The wick ignited. Not with orange flame, but with a pale silver-blue spark that danced like frost fire. Thaleia gasped. The flame flickered, then curved toward her as if greeting her. Kaelith's lips parted slightly, surprise cracking his composure. "Good," he murmured. "Very good. I didn't mean to." "Yes. That is the challenge," he said. "Your will is strong. Your heart even stronger. But strength without direction becomes chaos." He moved closer, his presence wrapping around her like shadow and winter. "We'll teach it to listen." Her breath steadied. "We?" Kaelith's gaze softened, subtly, but unmistakably. "Yes. We." Training with Kaelith became its own rhythm. Mornings in the library, where she read stories older than her kingdom. Afternoons in the mirror hall, learning to coax water into movement, to bend light, to warm stone with a single touch. Evenings with Soraya, grounding herself after the surge of magic left her trembling. Thaleia learned quickly, not perfectly, but fiercely. When she failed, Kaelith never mocked. When she succeeded, his eyes glowed faintly, as if her victory illuminated something inside him. And sometimes, it felt as though the fortress itself responded to her. Shadows shifted when she entered. Torches flared. Water rippled in bowls though no wind blew. One evening, she stood before a bowl carved from obsidian, steam rising faintly. Kaelith watched her from a few steps behind, always close enough to intervene, never close enough to overwhelm. "Speak to it," he instructed. "It's water," she said. "So are rivers," he replied. "So is blood." She focused. A thin streak of warmth slid through her hands. The water shivered. Then rose, forming a delicate arc before collapsing gently back into the bowl. Thaleia smiled despite herself. "I did it." "You guided it," Kaelith corrected. "Power obeys intention." Then, unexpectedly, his expression shifted, a shadow passing behind his gaze. "Thaleia, does the fire inside you ever feel like it wants something more?" She hesitated. "Sometimes. Like it's waiting." "For what?" "For someone to stop telling it to be small." Kaelith inhaled sharply. A rare sign of emotion from an immortal. "Your father lied when he said your presence here was a burden. He's lied about me for years." "Then let me tell you truth," Kaelith murmured, stepping closer until she could see the frost glows circling his pupils. "You are not weak. You are not too much. You are not a mistake. What lives in you is something ancient, and if awakened fully, it could reshape kingdoms. Thaleia's breath trembled. That sounds dangerous. It is, he said. Which is why I will never allow anyone to control it but you. Something new, something unspoken and electric, passed between them then. Something her father would never understand. Something the world outside might fear. Something that felt like the edge of destiny. The first sign of danger came at dawn. Thaleia was eating breakfast in her chambers when the fortress horn blared, a deep, echoing call that rattled the iron window frames. Thaleia burst inside, face pale. Riders! Human riders! Bearing the High King's banner! Thaleia's stomach dropped. So soon? He must have marched the moment Varric left your hall, Thaleia said bitterly. A king rarely waits when he smells a chance to claim what isn't his. The corridor outside trembled with hurried footsteps. Kaelith appeared in the doorway an instant later, cloak swirling like a storm cloud. Thaleia, he said, voice clipped. Stay with Thaleia. Do not leave this level until I return. What is happening? She demanded. The High King seeks leverage, Kaelith growled. And he believes you are it. Thaleia's chest tightened. So I'm a pawn again. Not here. Kaelith stepped closer, lowering his voice. Not while you stand in my shadow. Then, unexpectedly, he lifted a hand to her cheek, cooling the fear burning there. You are not to blame for the greed of men, he murmured. But you may yet be their undoing. Before she could answer, he turned sharply and vanished down the hall, leaving only the scent of winter and something darker, something protective, behind him. Thaleia exhaled shakily. The High King had come. And this time, Thaleia was not the helpless daughter of Hollow Spire. She was something far older. Something awakening. Something ready. By the time Kaelith reached the Grand Hall, sunlight was beginning to spill through the narrow windows, thin, pale beams that stretched like accusing fingers across the marble floor. Human soldiers filled the space, their armor clinking, their boots scraping like insects scratching at stone. At their center stood a tall man draped in gold and wolf pelt fur. High King Odrin Veldros. Thaleia had heard stories of him, of the man who united 4 clans through fear rather than unity, who bent dukes to his will and punished villages that dared hesitate when paying taxes. She had imagined him grander. Instead, he looked like a man who needed to convince the world he was king, because he feared someone stronger. And in this hall, that someone was Kaelith. The Alpha King's shadow stretched long across the floor, silent. Controlled. Lethal. Lord Kaelith of Nightspire, Odrin announced, voice booming as if volume could mask uncertainty. You hold a human noblewoman under your roof. One who did not come of free will. Kaelith's eyes glowed faintly, the ring of ember red brightening. She is unharmed. Protected. Teaching herself to breathe after a lifetime where she was denied the air. Do not twist this, Odrin snapped. You kidnapped her. I accepted her, Kaelith corrected. Her father delivered her like a sack of grain at my gates. Murmurs rippled through the hall. The king's jaw tightened. She is of the royal domain. I order you to relinquish her. Kaelith stepped forward, and the torches dimmed as if honoring their true sovereign. She is not yours, he said softly. Nor her father's. Nor anyone's. And she is not yours. Odrin spat. No, Kaelith agreed, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. But she stands by her own choice. Something humans seem eager to forget when it does not suit their convenience. A knight stepped forward, pointing a spear at Kaelith's chest. You defy the crown, he barked. Kaelith didn't even blink. Your crown is only feared by those who cannot freeze a river with a breath or command fire with a word. A hush fell. The king's composure cracked for a heartbeat. So it is true, Odrin muttered. The old power has awakened. Kaelith's expression sharpened. What do you intend to do with this knowledge, human? Claim it, the king said without shame. We could use her to bend kingdoms, to extinguish rebellions too. Kaelith's voice became ice. You will speak of Thaleia as if she is a weapon one more time, and your men will return home carrying only your crown. Knights surged forward, but Kaelith extended one hand. A shimmering pressure rolled through the hall, like stone inhaling. Every torch bowed inward. Armor rattled. Men froze as if frost locked their joints. The High King swallowed, courage faltering. You would start a war over one girl? Kaelith's eyes blazed. Not a girl. A sovereign power in her own right. And if you touch a hair on her head... He leaned in, his voice ancient and terrible. I will remind your kingdom why mine was never conquered. The king flinched. For the first time in centuries, humans remembered what an alpha vampire truly was. From the balcony overlooking the hall, Thaleia watched in silence, Thaleia beside her, gripping her arm. You can end this, Thaleia whispered. They won't listen to Kaelith. But they might listen to the one they claim to protect. Thaleia drew a slow breath. Her heart hammered. Her palms tingled with warmth, that familiar magic whispering beneath her skin. She stepped forward. Thaleia didn't stop her. Thaleia descended the steps as every pair of eyes in the grand hall snapped toward her. The king's soldiers stiffened. Kaelith turned sharply, worry flashing in his eyes despite his attempt to hide it. Thaleia, he murmured, stepping toward her. You shouldn't. She lifted her chin. I should, she said softly. Kaelith fell silent. She walked past him, past the lines of human soldiers who parted as if uncertain whether they faced a woman or a storm. Before the king she stopped. And bowed. Not out of submission, but out of choice. My king, she said. Odin exhaled in relief, mistaking her tone. Lady Thaleia? You are safe now. You will return with us. Thaleia lifted her head. Her eyes, which had always been warm, now glowed faintly, like silver embers beneath water. No, she said. The word ricocheted through the hall. She stepped back, placing herself beside Kaelith, not behind him. I remain here of my own will. The king's mouth fell open. He has enchanted you. No enchantment, Thaleia cut in. I speak with my voice. My power. My truth. She lifted her hands. The torches throughout the hall bent toward her like flowers seeking the sun, flame obeying the old blood now living fully awakened in her veins. Men gasped. Some stepped back, whispering prayers under their breath. This fortress gave me what Hollow Spire never did, Thaleia said. Dignity. Safety. Knowledge. Choice. She looked up at the king. You cannot take me from here because you cannot take what I am. Kaelith's gaze burned with pride. Something fierce, protective, and dangerously close to something more. The hall fell silent except for Thaleia's heartbeat pounding like a drum of destiny. The High King's expression twisted into something between awe and fear. You stand with the Alpha King? He asked. Thaleia inhaled deeply. Then answered. I stand with myself. Her eyes turned toward Kaelith. And he stands with me. The torches flared, silver and blue, sealing her declaration with magic older than kingdoms. A murmur rippled across the grand hall, uncertainty, disbelief, and something sharper underneath, fear. Not fear of Kaelith. Fear of her. The High King, Odin Veldros, stared at Thaleia as if she were a prophecy given flesh, one he had no desire to see fulfilled. You dare refuse your sovereign, he said quietly, too quietly. Quiet, from a man like him, was more dangerous than shouting. Thaleia held his gaze. Steady. Unshaken. For the first time in her life, she was not shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. I belong to no sovereign, she said. And certainly not to a father who discarded me, nor to a king who sees me as a pawn. Gasps rippled through the hall. Odin's jaw clenched. Then you name yourself enemy of the crown. Before Kaelith could respond, before the hall could snap into violence, Thaleia stepped forward. One deliberate stride. Her power hummed under her skin, a warning pulse, like stormlight inside her bones. "I do not seek to be your enemy," she said. "But if you force me into that role, you will regret the day you marched into Night Spire." Kaelith's eyes widened slightly, not in surprise, but in pride so deep and raw it nearly broke through his immortal calm. The king looked between them, calculating, furious, cornered. Finally, he raised a hand. "Stand down," he ordered his soldiers. "What? Your Majesty!" A night began. "Stand down." Reluctantly, the royal guards lowered their weapons. Not because they wished to, but because even they could see the tide had shifted. No human army could fight an alpha king in his own fortress. And certainly not with a wielder of old blood at his side. Odrin turned to Thaleia. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Your power threatens the balance of the realm." Thaleia replied, her voice unwavering. "Then the realm will need to learn a new balance." The king's stare hardened into something like prophecy, or warning. "You have chosen the night over the sun," he said. "So be it." He swept his cloak around himself, and strode toward the doors. But before leaving, he paused. "Prepare, Kaelith," Odrin said, his voice echoing through the hall. "The next time we meet, it will be on a battlefield." The doors slammed shut. The sound rang through the hall like a war drum. Silence held the room for several long breaths. At last Kaelith turned to Thaleia, his expression a quiet storm. "You should not have put yourself in his path," he said, but his voice was softer than the words. "I needed to," she replied. "He needed to hear me." Kaelith approached her slowly, his footsteps silent against the marble. When he stopped in front of her, he lifted a hand and brushed his fingers across her cheek, so faintly she barely felt it. "You stood before a king and an army," he murmured. "And you did not bend." "I've bent my whole life," Thaleia whispered. "To my father. To expectations. To shame that was never mine." Her throat tightened. "Not anymore." Kaelith's jaw shifted, the only sign of emotion he allowed. "You are becoming something the world has not seen in centuries," he said. "Not just a bearer of old blood, but a sovereign of it." The flame torches flickered in agreement. Thaleia felt warmth spread through her chest, power responding, listening, awakening. Then she remembered something. "What will happen now?" she asked. Kaelith stepped back, his expression turning grave. "Odrin will return. Not with 50 soldiers, but with 5,000. He will use your father's betrayal as justification for war. And he will paint me as a monster stealing human daughters." Thaleia swallowed. "And me?" Kaelith's eyes softened. "He will paint you as the weapon I forged." A chill rolled down her spine. "But you didn't," she whispered. "No," Kaelith said. "I did not." He hesitated, then added quietly. "But you could become a weapon, if you chose to." Thaleia flinched. "I don't want to be a weapon." Kaelith reached out again, this time taking her hand. His touch was cold, but not unpleasant. It grounded her. "Then you won't be." Their hands remained joined for a heartbeat too long, then Thaleia cleared her throat from the doorway. "My king," she said softly. "The council is gathering." Kaelith straightened, mask of authority returning. He let Thaleia's hand go, reluctantly she thought. "Rest for now, Thaleia," he said. "Night Spire must prepare for war." But as she walked away, she heard his voice again, quieter, as if speaking only to himself. "And so must you." Night fell fast the day the High King departed, as if the sun itself feared what was coming. From her window, Thaleia watched the sky bruise into deep indigo, streaked with the faint glow of the twin moons. Below, the fortress stirred like a waking beast, soldiers drilling in the torchlit courtyards, apprentices hauling crates of weapons, messengers sprinting between towers. She could feel it. Magic, thick and urgent, humming through Night Spire's bones. A soft knock sounded. "Enter," Thaleia called. Thaleia stepped inside with a bundle of folded fabric. The king requests you in the armory, but… She hesitated. He thought you might want something more fitting for the night. She laid the garment across Thaleia's hands. It was a cloak, deep midnight blue, threaded with silver sigils subtle enough to vanish unless caught by moonlight. The fabric felt warm, lighter than silk, humming faintly with contained power. It anchors magic, Thaleia explained. Old blood magic surges when threatened. This will help you channel it without overwhelming yourself. Thaleia swallowed. He had this made for me? Thaleia smiled. Kaelith sees the storm coming, and he sees the one who will stand at its eye. Thalia's heart beat like a drum against her ribs. She slipped the cloak on. It settled over her shoulders like something recognizing its rightful place. Come, Thaleia said gently. He's waiting. The armory was alive with motion, steel ringing against steel, the sharp scent of oiled metal in the air. Kaelith stood at the center, overseeing a set of runeblades being carried in. His posture, straight and severe, radiated command. But the moment he sensed Thaleia, his head lifted. His eyes changed. The ember glows softened, warmed, sharpened all at once. Thaleia, he said, voice dropping from command to something quieter. The cloak suits you. She stepped toward him. Thaleia said you wanted to see me. His expression shifted into something like concern. But Kaelith was a master at hiding emotion. This was the closest he came to showing it. There is something you must understand, he began. When war comes, and it will, the old blood inside you will not stay silent. It will respond to fear, to need, to instinct. I can control it, Thaleia insisted. Can you? Kaelith asked gently. He gestured for her to stand beside him. A long table sat between them, covered in maps, diagrams, troop marks. But at the far end lay a single object. A small obsidian bowl, filled with still water. The moment Thaleia approached, ripples shimmered across its surface. Kaelith nodded toward it. Touch the water. Thaleia hesitated, then dipped her fingers into the bowl. The water flared silver, rushing upward in a twisting column that spiraled toward the ceiling. The temperature in the armory dropped, frost creeping along the table's edge. Thaleia gasped and pulled her hand back. The water collapsed instantly. She stared at her trembling fingers. I didn't mean to do that. No, Kaelith said quietly. Your power is beginning to act on your emotions alone. Fear flickered in her chest, and the torches around them flickered in response. Kaelith extended his hand. Give it to me. Thaleia placed her hand in his. Her magic stilled. Warmth returned to the air. The torches steadied. She exhaled shakily. I don't know how to stop it. That is because you were never allowed to feel, Kaelith said. Your father taught you to silence everything inside you. But magic… He rested his other hand above their joined fingers, not touching, simply near. Magic needs voice. Needs truth. They stood close, too close, perhaps, and yet something about the distance felt right. Like stepping forward would pull them out of orbit. Thaleia forced her breath steady. What happens if I lose control in battle? Kaelith's gaze didn't waver. Then I will be there. And together, we will bend your power into something that does not destroy you. Together, she echoed softly. His eyes darkened with something like devotion, rare, fierce, ancient. Yes, he said. Together. Nightspire's warning horn shattered the quiet. A harsh, spiraling cry, once, twice, then a third time. Thaleia ran into the armory, her violet eyes wide. Scouts on the western cliffs. The king's forward riders have arrived, days earlier than expected. Kaelith turned instantly, all softness vanishing into command. How many? 24 for now, Thaleia said. But the main army cannot be far. Thalia's stomach tightened. War wasn't coming. War was here. Kaelith looked toward Thaleia, and though his voice stayed calm, the words held weight. It begins. She nodded once. Fear curled in her chest, but so did something else, something rising, ancient, electric. Resolve. Kaelith's gaze flicked briefly to her cloak, then to her hands. Stay close to Thaleia, he ordered. Until I call for you. She stepped forward. No. Kaelith paused, staring at her like she had spoken a spell. I'm not hiding while others fight, Thaleia said. Not again. Not ever. His jaw tightened. Thaleia. I stay with you. The hall quieted. Even the torches leaned in. Slowly, respectfully, Kaelith took a step toward her. Then you stay, he said softly. Not behind me. Not beneath my command. His voice deepened. But beside me. Thaleia inhaled sharply, because she heard in those words not just strategy, but prophecy. Nightspire's western battlements were carved directly into the sheer cliffs, a jagged drop into misty nothingness on one side, a torchlit defensive line on the other. When Thaleia reached them with Kaelith, the air buzzed with urgency. Night-Spirian sentinels lined the wall, their armor fused with quiet enchantments that shimmered like frost under torchlight. Below, on the winding mountain path, the High King's vanguard approached. 24 riders, cloaks snapping in the cold wind, armor polished like a challenge. They bore lanterns that flickered unnaturally bright, and Thaleia realized with a jolt. Those were not lanterns. They were wards, anti-magic torches, built to weaken vampires, to dampen enchantments. The High King wasn't arriving blindly. He came prepared. Kaelith stood near the edge, cloak billowing in the wind like a dark tide. He observed the riders with stillness so complete, even the torches seemed to quiet around him. They test our boundaries, Kaelith murmured. Measure our response. They want to know if we will attack first. Thaleia swallowed. Will we? No, he said. War has rules. They want justification, a spark they can claim we lit. One soldier below raised a horn to his lips. A long, sharp note cut through the air. Thaleia stepped beside Thaleia, voice tight. They demand parley. Kaelith's expression hardened. They seek to provoke. Will you go down? Thaleia asked. No, Kaelith replied. I will not walk willingly into their wards. Then he looked at her. But you could. The words struck her like a blow, unexpected, impossible, yet somehow, right. Me? Thaleia whispered. Kaelith nodded slowly. The king cannot harm you without revealing his true intent. And he underestimates you. Humans always underestimate what they fear. And if they try anyway? She asked. The torches around them bent toward Kaelith, responding to the shift in his aura. Then, he said, I will end every man who lays a hand on you. Her pulse thundered. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Tell me honestly, Kaelith, am I ready for this? He didn't hesitate. You were ready the moment you stopped believing their lies. Thaleia's breath caught. His certainty settled over her shoulders like another cloak, grounding her, strengthening her, anchoring her. She turned toward the path. I'll go. Kaelith's jaw tightened, but he didn't forbid her. He only stepped close enough that she felt his presence envelop her like a shield. Then I go with you, he murmured, low enough that only she heard. Not to protect your power, but to stand with it. Thaleia descended the narrow staircase carved into the cliffside, escorted by Thaleia and 2 day-walker sentinels. Kaelith moved beside her, a silent storm at her shoulder. The mountain path was cold and wet with drifting mist. She pulled her new cloak tighter, the sigils on it pulsing softly, resonating with her heartbeat. When the vanguard saw them, torches flared in alarm. The lead rider halted, a knight in black gold armor with a wolf crest helm. He dismounted stiffly, removing his helmet to reveal sharp eyes and a jaw set in stone. Commander Varric Halden. The High King's favored weapon. He bowed. Not respectfully, formally. Lady Thaleia of Hollow Spire, he said. By decree of His Majesty, you are summoned to return to your rightful place at human court. Thaleia stepped forward before Kaelith could respond. I have refused that decree. The commander's expression hardened. Your refusal was recorded. And dismissed. Soraya hissed under her breath. Kaelith's aura darkened. Thaleia didn't move. You have no authority over me, she said. We have authority over all subjects of the crown, Varric replied. I am no longer a subject of the crown. He blinked, not expecting that. She continued, voice steady. I stand with Knight Spire. I stand under Kaelith's protection. And I stand under my own power. A murmur traveled through the soldiers. Commander Varric's gaze lowered to her cloak, to the faint silver glow at its seams. So it is true, he said softly. The old blood stirs in you. Thaleia didn't answer. She didn't need to. For a long moment, Varric stared at her with something almost like pity. Then he said the words that chilled her blood. His Majesty anticipated your defiance. Kaelith stepped forward sharply. And what does the king anticipate next? Varric raised one gloved hand. A signal. Behind him, 2 riders pulled a large crate from the back of their supply wagon. They set it on the ground, unlocked it, and opened the lid. Thaleia staggered backward. Inside the crate, beaten and bound, bruised and gagged, was Alira, her youngest sister. No, not the cruel one. The only one who used to sneak food to her. Who once whispered that Thaleia deserved better. The one who cried when she was taken away. Alira's eyes widened at the sight of her. Tears filled them. A sound tore from Thaleia's throat, not quite a scream, not quite a sob. Kaelith's entire body went still. Not with fear. With murder. Commander Varric spoke calmly. His Majesty requests your peaceful return to avoid further difficulty. Thaleia trembled. You would use my sister against me? Varric shrugged. You gave us little choice. Thaleia's magic surged, hot, violent, pulsing like wildfire under her skin. Kaelith stepped close, touching her arm lightly. Thaleia. Breathe. I won't leave her, she whispered, shaking. You won't, Kaelith said. But there are ways to retrieve her without surrender. Varric continued. You have until sunrise tomorrow. Return voluntarily, or more of your family will arrive in crates. Thaleia's knees weakened. Kaelith caught her before she fell. Commander Varric mounted his horse. One day, he said coldly. Choose wisely. The riders turned and vanished into the mist. Thaleia stood trembling beside Kaelith, staring at the empty crate. Her sister was alive, for now. But the king had crossed a line. He had declared war not just on Knight Spire, but on her. Thaleia didn't remember falling to her knees. One moment she was watching the riders vanish into the mist, the crate still swinging slightly where they'd left it. And the next, she was on the cold stone, hands digging into the earth hard enough to hurt. Her breath came ragged. Her vision tunneled. Alira, her gentle sister, dragged into this nightmare as leverage. As bait. Her cloak trembled around her as if the fabric sensed her unraveling. Magic surged, not warm this time, but blistering, molten, volcanic. The torches on the battlement exploded in gouts of silver fire. Soraya stumbled backward, eyes widening. Thaleia! You must center yourself. I can't, Thaleia choked out. I can't, he took her, he took my sister. The ground beneath her palms cracked in a spiderweb of glowing lines. Frost and flames spiraled out from her fingers like warring storms. Kaelith knelt instantly beside her. Not touching. Not grabbing. Just there, like a cliff face she could choose to lean against but never had to. Thaleia, he said softly. Listen to me. She felt him before she saw him, calm, cold steadiness pressing against the wildfire inside her. If you unleash this emotion without direction, he murmured, your power will level the western cliff. You might kill our soldiers. You might harm Soraya. You might harm yourself. Her vision blurred. I don't care, I need to save her. And you will, Kaelith said, his voice gaining weight. But not like this. He placed one hand above hers. Not touching, just hovering, letting his presence steady the threads of her power instead of dampening them. Something inside her responded. Her magic recognized him. Like a river recognizing the pull of the moon. Breathe, Kaelith murmured. Not because I command it, but because you choose to. Thaleia forced air into her lungs. Her fingers loosened. The ground stopped glowing. Finally, the power fell back into silence, leaving her trembling but unbroken. Kaelith watched her with eyes no longer red, but burning garnet. Good, he said. Very good. She wiped her face. I'm sorry. Never apologize for loving someone enough to burn the world for them. That shattered something inside her all over again, but not in the same way. He offered his hand. This time, she took it. The night deepened as they returned to the High Council chamber, Thaleia wrapped tightly in her cloak, still shaking. Kaelith walked beside her, step for step, keeping just near enough for her power to stay calm. Inside, council members stood stiffly around a long obsidian table. Thaleia, Commander Hark, the old scholar Varen, and half a dozen other vampire or daywalker advisors who bowed when Kaelith entered. Kaelith stood at the head of the table. Thaleia stood beside him. A position no human had ever held. Commander Hark slammed his fist on the table. They kidnapped a noble child. This is not a parley. It's provocation. It's worse, Varen murmured, leaning heavily on his staff. It is desperation. The High King fears what Thaleia's awakening represents. Thaleia swallowed hard. Fear or not, he has Elira. Kaelith nodded once. The king has taken a hostage. During an official parley. That violates every treaty ever signed between our kind. Which means, Thaleia said quietly, we are no longer bound by those treaties either. A murmur of agreement. Thaleia felt cold. What does that mean? Kaelith turned to her gently. It means we can strike first. Her heart lurched. I don't want war to be because of me. Kaelith shook his head. War is because of the king's greed. Because of your father's lies. Because men fear a woman with power. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You are not the cause. You are simply the excuse they cling to. Thaleia clenched her fists. So what do we do? The council quieted as Kaelith lifted a single hand. We retrieve her sister, he said. Before dawn. Thaleia exhaled shakily. How? The king's vanguard is already leaving the mountain. They'll have full camp set by nightfall. Kaelith gave her a faint, dangerous smile. Then we move faster than they do. Kaelith gestured to the table. Thaleia unfurled a map, inked hastily but clearly. The vanguard will make camp here, Thaleia said, pointing to a flat section of the lower valley. They're too proud to travel the cliff roads at night. Pride makes them slow, Hark muttered. Which makes them reachable, Kaelith said. Thaleia leaned forward. But their wards, those lanterns, will not protect them from you, Thaleia said quietly. Thaleia froze. Me? I can't go alone. You won't, Kaelith said firmly. I'll be with you. Her breath left her. But my magic, what if I lose control again? What if I hurt Elira, what if? Kaelith placed 2 fingers under her chin, lifting her gaze to his. Look at me. She did. The fortress seemed to fade around them. You wield old blood, he said softly. A power that answers to intention. You don't lash out blindly. Your magic awakens when you feel deeply. Which is exactly why it terrifies me. She whispered. Thaleia, he said. Your magic defended you. It listened. It did not strike your allies. It did not harm your sister. It only rose against those who would wound you. His voice dropped. Low. Ancient. Fiercely certain. You are not out of control. You are awakening. And somehow, those words steadied her more than any spell. She inhaled. Straightened. Tell me the plan, she said. Kaelith's lips curved slightly. Approval, pride, something more. We take a small unit, Thaleia, myself, 2 daywalkers. We move under shadow concealment. We infiltrate the camp at its weakest point. You locate the crate. You free your sister. Thaleia nodded. Then what? Then, Kaelith said, we bring her home. And the soldiers? Thaleia whispered. Kaelith's eyes glinted. They should pray they do not raise a weapon against you. Fog clung to the valley like a living thing as Thaleia, Kaelith, Thaleia, and 2 daywalkers descended the hidden western path. Their cloaks absorbed the moonlight, turning them into moving shadows. Thaleia's heartbeat quickened with each step. Elira. Alive. Terrified. Waiting. Kaelith walked beside her, cloak brushing quietly against hers. You're trembling, he murmured. I know. Good. She blinked. Good? It means you care enough to feel, he said. Power without feeling is hollow. Feeling without power is tragic. But you. His eyes flickered over her face. You have both. For a moment, she forgot the danger entirely. The mist parted at last, revealing the king's temporary camp. Tents arranged in a crescent, torches burning unnaturally bright, horses tied in clusters, guards pacing. And in the center, Thaleia saw it. The crate. Her sister's crate. A sound like a heartbeat struck her chest. Kaelith placed a hand on her shoulder. Ready? Thaleia nodded. But her voice was steady. Let's bring her home. The king's camp lay spread beneath the moon like a steel-toothed beast, silent, watchful, waiting to snap shut on anything foolish enough to wander too close. Lantern wards burned with steady golden flame, their light rippling across the tents in unnatural waves. Even the mist seemed afraid to drift too near them. Thaleia inhaled slowly, gripping the edge of her cloak. The sigils pulsed faintly in response, syncing with her breath. Kaelith leaned closer, speaking so softly the night itself had to lean in to hear. Follow my steps. Not behind me, beside me. She nodded. Together, they slipped down the slope. Thaleia and the 2 daywalkers fanned out behind them, forming a protective arc. No one spoke. The only sounds were the whispers of grass under their boots and the distant stamping of restless horses. As they neared the outer ring of tents, Kaelith lifted his hand. A wordless signal. A wisp of darkness rolled outward, barely visible, more felt than seen. The shadows of rocks, tents, and even blades of grass thickened, curling strangely until the air shimmered with muted distortion. Night concealment. The signature magic of an Alpha King. Within its veil, Thaleia's heartbeat felt amplified, not louder, but more alive. The air around them softened, weightless, as though they walked through a dream suspended between breaths. Stay inside its reach, Kaelith murmured. She moved closer, letting his presence anchor her. The first guard passed only a few paces away, lantern swinging. He looked straight toward them, and saw nothing at all. Even so, Thaleia exhaled shakily. Kaelith brushed her wrist with his fingertips, barely a touch, but it steadied her instantly. They advanced deeper. The crate came into view, half hidden behind the commander's tent. Its lid now sat bolted shut. Thaleia felt cold fury ripple through her like a tide. Elira, she whispered, barely sound. Kaelith placed a hand at the small of her back. We retrieve her quietly. If quiet fails, we pivot. Pivot meaning? Bring this camp to its knees. A fierce calm settled into Thaleia's bones. They slipped behind a stack of supply barrels. From this angle, they could see the guard posted beside Elira's crate, a single man pacing lazily, bored, unaware of the storm creeping toward him. Thaleia moved first. A flicker. A whisper. A single tap to the side of the guard's neck. He crumpled silently. Kaelith stepped beside the crate, fingertips grazing the metal lock. The wards woven into it hissed with gold sparks. Human spellwork, he muttered. Crude, but irritating. Thaleia knelt. Let me try. Kaelith studied her for only a breath before giving a single nod. Thalia closed her eyes. She pictured Alira's face, soft, frightened, brave in that quiet way only younger sisters know. She pictured the nights Alira slipped food under her door, the mornings she left stolen flowers on Thalia's windowsill. Her hand brushed the lock. The old blood stirred. The metal glowed white-hot, then melted like wax, dripping harmlessly onto the dirt. Kaelith exhaled, not with surprise, but something very close to awe. Thalia threw open the lid. Alira lay bound, wrists red and bruised, face streaked with tears. When her eyes met Thalia's, she gasped. "Th Thalia?" Her voice cracked. "Is it really you?" Thalia pulled her into her arms. "I'm here. I'm here. I've got you." Alira sobbed against her shoulder. But the moment lasted only seconds. Soraya's hiss cut through the night. "Riders fast from the east!" Kaelith's head snapped up, eyes blazing. "They've doubled patrols. They must have sensed something." Alira trembled. "They'll kill us." "No," Thalia said, gripping her sister tighter. "They won't." Kaelith stepped in front of them, cloak swirling like a wing of shadow. "Behind me. Both of you." The shadows around them began to thin, the concealment weakening under Alira's fear, Thalia's magic, and the incoming patrol. Kaelith met Thalia's gaze. "Can you walk?" he asked her sister. "Yes," Alira whispered. Kaelith turned to Thalia. "Then it's time to leave. But not the quiet way." Thalia felt her heartbeat shift, from fear to resolve. "Tell me what to do," she said. Kaelith's eyes glowed with a fierce, unshakable trust. "Thalia," he said, "let the mist obey you." Her breath faltered. "I don't know how." "You do. You called fire without trying. You bent light without thinking. Let the mist feel your intent." The camp erupted into shouts. Torches flared. Horses screamed. Kaelith didn't break her gaze. "Save your sister," he whispered. "Call the mist." Thalia stood, pulling Alira behind her. The mist clung to her cloak, then drifted upward, waiting. She closed her eyes. And the mist heard her. The fog surged. Not swirling, not drifting, obeying. Like a creature waking to its mistress. White tendrils spiraled outward from Thalia, expanding across the camp, swallowing torches and muffled darkness. Human soldiers panicked instantly. "What is that? I can't see! Lanterns! Raise the wards higher!" Their shouts tangled in the thickening cloud. Alira clung to Thalia's cloak. Kaelith stepped close, his voice brushing her ear like a vow. "I knew you could." She didn't have time to blush. The fog continued to roll, denser and denser, until even moonlight vanished above them. Then Kaelith lifted Thalia into his arms with smooth, terrifying ease. "Hold tight." Alira clung to Soraya as the mist deepened. Kaelith whispered something in the ancient tongue. The shadows moved. And they vanished into them. The mist carried them farther than footsteps ever could. It rose beneath them, a living tide that bore Thalia, Alira, Kaelith, Soraya, and the daywalkers up the mountain path like a silver river flowing uphill. Behind them, the king's camp dissolved into confusion, shouts fading, torches sputtering, soldiers stumbling blindly in fog Thalia no longer feared. Alira trembled in her arms, but Thalia held her tight. "You're safe," she whispered, more promise than comfort. "You're safe, and I won't let anyone take you again." When the mist finally thinned, Nightspire rose before them, torches glowing blue, walls breathing ancient power, its gates opening as though sensing who approached. Kaelith set Thalia gently on her feet. She swayed, dizzy from the magic, from the fear, from the fierce love that had nearly torn the valley apart. "You did what even my strongest cannot," Kaelith murmured. "You saved your sister without raising a blade." Thalia exhaled shakily. "I didn't control it." He stepped closer. "You guided it. That is control in its truest form." Soraya helped Alira into the fortress, wrapping her in blankets and warmth. Kaelith waited until they were alone before speaking again. You know the king will not stop. I know, Thaleia replied. Her voice no longer shook. But I won't run anymore. I won't hide. I won't belong to a crown that never cared for me. Kaelith studied her, really studied her. Not as a burden. Not as a tribute. But as something far older, far brighter. A kingdom built on fear will tremble before a woman who finally remembers her worth, he said. Thaleia lifted her chin. I stand with Knight Spire. And I stand with myself. Kaelith slowly extended his hand, not in command, but in invitation. And if you stand with me, he said, voice lower than the torches, then no king, no army, no crown will ever claim you again. Her magic hummed, soft this time, warm like dawn breaking. She placed her hand in his. Not as a prisoner. Not as a pawn. But as a force the world would soon learn to fear, or bow to. Together they looked out across the valley, the mist settling like a curtain closing on one chapter and opening on another. War was coming. But so was a queen the realm had never seen. And her name was Thaleia.